Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are from Group 3. We are proudly present the material for our study under the title is Sending and Receiving Information. Next slide, please. Okay, let me introduce a member of our group. The first one is Farah, Fadillah, Laras, Sekar, Maharani, Rivaldi Anwar, and Lia Aprilia. Okay, for the first presenter, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Laras. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We will talk about this first, the introduction of ethics element by figure outside the action. Next slide, please. Okay. The prologue and epilogue that are presented by a figure outside the internal dramatic action, either an anonymous speaker, an allegorical personification or good figure, or a style personification of the author himself. Example of this is the famous epilogue to Bridge, the Good Woman of Sichuan. The chorus also belongs to this first type, and so far as it remains a figure collective outside the internal dramatic system and comment on the dramatic situation without getting involved in them. The feature of the chorus that tend to arouse most criticism is the fact that it destroys the dramatic illusion and undermines the power of feeling and emotion. But in fact, this is precisely what makes it most commendable for it. For it is exactly this powerful emotion and the creation of this kind of illusion that the true artists deplore and strive to avoid. Skiller emphasis on the anti-illusionist reflective disdain created by this function of the chorus already looks forward to bridge. True, of course, the ideological motivation behind their respective interpretation, but is very different. Next slide, please. Okay. Figure that is independent of the figure on the internal dramatic level and support a mediating communication system, the producer figure. He has a similar function to that of the speaker of the prologue and epilogue and the chorus. He appears as the fictional authorical subject presenting the internal dramatic system. A wilder stage manager is thus able to improve the action at any time. An example, thank you, that I'll do will have to interrupt again here. Thank you, Mrs. Webb. Thank you, Emil. And then he can invert the chronological of event. He can make chronological jump, which is bridge by introducing an informative narrative. He can make the audience aware of the play as theatrical performance. He can even draw attention to the principle of his own arrangement of the plot. And finally, he can even take a minor role of himself. And using this informative narrative and evaluative commentaries to remind this content contract with the audience, he is able to develop an independent figure perspective that is subordinate to and embrace those of all the other figures on the internal dramatic layer. The function embodied in the producer or stage manager figure are structurally the closest dramatic text come to the communication model from narrative text. Next slide, please. And the next part is the introduction of epic element by figure inside the action. This kind of personal union of dramatic figure and epic mediator can occur in the prologue or epilogue, as well as in the chorus and in commentaries by individual figure. Prologue declined by one of dramatic figure were already a feature of classical drama, the epilogue also contains a large number of verbal references back to the fictional world of the play. The addresses of the epilogue is no longer character of on the internal dramatic level but the audience, to whom the speaker turned with his captive benevolently. In this scene, it is no longer Prospero who is the speaker, but the actor or the part of Prospero. Next slide. Next. This superimposition of epic and mediating elements up to the internal communication system create an ambivalent blend of fiction and reality in which the speaker of the epilogue reminisces about both his political career in his role as the Duke of Milan and his theatrical performance as an actor. However, this ambivalence does not justify the equation of Prospero magic with the Putis. Putis are the Tempest as a play of view that is defined in allegorizing interpretation. In the history of drama, the external and internal variants have generally been roughly equal in importance as far as the prologue and epilogue are concerned. If we now turn to the chorus, there is no doubt that the internal variant predominates. Indeed, in classical theories of drama, in these ways held to be the absolute norm. For example, Aristotle demanded the chorus must be regarded as one of the actors. It must be part of the whole and share in action. It is thus in Shopfield's. In Shopfield. Next slide, please. Aristotle demands that the chorus whole share in the action is almost always reduced to the function to the chorus as an interested but generally passive observer who is only active in the verbal sense, offering word of advice, warning, or prayer. The chorus of 10 elders in Oedipus the King remain closely bound up with the concrete situation is most of its song. Every one of these songs performed by the chorus is characterized by clear thematic reference to the event and dialogue taking place around it, on of which is scroll and into which it returns. One song that differs from all of the other by virtue of its greater degree of abstraction is called it is the second stationary song. This stationary song, a reflective commentary on the drama as a whole, and therefore function as a tentative epic communication system mediating between the dramatic action and the audience. Next slide, please. A modern equivalent of this chorus in the song of the type propagated both in theory and in practice in dramaturgy of Bertolt Brecht. The epic mediating function of the song is thus clear from both the schematic context and the manner of delivery. The action playing the part of the dramatic figure almost completely disappear behind the actor as a singing commentator, and the sound is remain highly abstract and as such provide commentary on the drama as a whole, striving to expose in centralism, bourgeois capitalist morality. Next slide, please. And the epic communication structure outlined above all represents separate units that can be clearly distinguished from the dialogue of the internal dramatic level. The criterion of epic quality is the degree of which the speaker is abstracted from situation and is time switch basis. That these examples are largely taken from Cambis is not coincidental, but rather a further reflection of the special affinity between comic and epic structure. In the works of Plautus, for example, the internal communication system is interrupted on numerous occasions. I think that's all from me. Thank you for your attention. The next material will be delivered by Laras. Laras, study is yours.
Okay, thank you, Lia. Finally, we would like to turn our attention to nonverbal epic structures. In comedy, it is often possible to observe a style of acting in which the actor prefers to distance himself from his part, so ordinating it it to his artistic virtuosity rather than submerging himself in it completely. In doing so, the actor fulfills a clear mediating function with regard to the role he is performing. In fact, with regard to the role he is performing, in fact, one might say that he is consists demonstrating it rather than performing it. This feature is particularly common in the commedia dell'arte, for example, in which the static aspect of the characters and statically presented help mass subvert all attempts. Okay, the next feature common to the epic communication structure discussed about is that they all undermine concept of the drama that preserve its absolute autonomy with regard to author and audience. A feature common to the epic communication structure discussed above is that they all undermine concept of drama that preserve its absolutely autonomy with regard to author and audience. It is their apparent disparity is a result of the fact that they can occur on all various level and layers to the dramatic text. Taken as a whole, they represent the repertoire of formal epic techniques applied to the communication process. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. Next, successiveness and transmission of information. This is a picture about simultaneity and successiveness. So far, in our discussion of the transmission of information and the communication structure of dramatic text, we have tend to ignore the fact that dramatic text is a process. For it is a truism that dramatic text realize it is information potential successfully in strictly regulate with pattern of successive elements. Next. Okay, the transmission of information at the beginning of drama. What we understand as the transmission of information at the beginning of a play regularly consists with the classical theoretical concept of the exposition, one of the most intensively analyzed formal aspect of drama. If, however, we define exposition as the transmission of information to do with event and situation from the past of the determined of dramatic present, then it becomes immediately clear that, on other hand, exposition is not restricted to the introductory pass of the text, and on the other, the transmission information in the initial pass of the text is not necessarily confined to serving some sort of expository function, such as exposition and dramatic introduction, isolate versus integrate exposition, the dominant form of temporal reference, and the last monological versus dialogical exposition. For the next presentation, the time is yours.
Okay. We're still in the same topic with Laras. So here we are. In this way, the isolation of the monological exposition from the context of the dramatic situation is diminished even further. Of course, the transition from a soliloquy to dialogue and from an audience-oriented to an autonomous scene still marks a decisive break. This break can only be avoided by embedding the expository information in a dialogue, thus creating a dialogical exposition. The simplest exposition in a dramatic situation consists in placing alongside the bearer of expository information a dialogue partner whose sole function is to stimulate the transmission of information by asking questions and making a comments, and who disappear or from the play once this function has been fulfilled. We can next to the more. Next slide, please. All right. The monological quality is also apparent from the dialogue structure, or in purely quantitative terms, the speech are clearly balanced in favor of the old man Simo. It is a Simo who also provides the impulse for all of the dialogical exchange with a so restricted either to asking a question that provokes Simo into giving more expository information or to recreating to it with exclamation of astonishment, right? From a functional point of view, the prothetic figures is just not a genuine a dialogue partner, but a thinly built stage representative of the audience hunger for information. So, what is it? Ini yang dibahas sama si Simo itu intinya tuh ini gitu dari sources yang sudah ada. We can move to the next slide. Rivaldi, we can move. Okay, thank you so much. Expository information can be integrated into the structure of generally a dialogical dialogue. The first one, dialogical dialogue. There is not merely in a more or less blatantly. And the second one is monological dialogue. Independently of the status of the dialogue partners, it is just likely to occur in a dialogue between two minor figures as it is between two major figures, or indeed between a major and minor figures. As an illustration of this, we have therefore chosen the less obvious case of a dialogue between two minor figures in order to show that even when expository information is transmitted by peripheral figures, it can nonetheless be integrated into the text as a whole and can be motivated dialogically in a number Next slide, please. Okay, here we are. 3.7.3, the transmission of information at the end of the drama. What is it? It is in analogy with the theory of exposition that is applied to the beginnings of dramas. The classical theorists also developed a number of concepts to help classify the endings. And then there are two subtopics in this topic. The first one is close ending in drama, and the second one is open endings in drama. What is close ending in the drama? This particular aspect of information transmission is concerned above all with the concept of anagoresis, solutio, and theme movement. These three share a common conception of the dramatic plot, according to which a figure or group of other figures find themselves in a disturbing situation as a result of either intrigue, self-deception, or lack information. And the second one is open endings in the drama. What is it? As a reaction against the close from a dramatic ending, playwrights have developed the open form. This is especially common in place of the modern period. This deviation from the classical norm, marked by a refusal to supply an ending in which all the informational discrepancies are eliminated and all the conflicts resolved, can have a number of a different functions. We can move to the next slide. And for the 3.7.4, the topic is information and suspenses. In this discussion of the various ways that information can be sent successfully, we should also like to examine the whole question of dramatic suspense. By doing so, we would hope to establish a greater degree of precision and practicability in the ways this concept is applied so as to undermine the tendency to equate suspense with some form of a conflict or further oriented finality. And in this topic, there are 4 subtopics. The first one is a suspense and a partial awareness. What is it? Wait. All right. Suspense and partial awareness. As an element in the linear sequential development of the plot, suspense potential can only be present when the figures on the stage and or the spectators in the auditorium are only partly aware of what might happen next. That's it. And the second one, the parameters of suspense. The parameters of suspense in establishing that the suspense potential of a dramatic text result from the partial awareness of the figures and or receives as to what will happen next. We have done no more that paraphrase the general condition applying to the build-up of a suspense potential. I'm sorry. And the third one is a short and long-term suspenses. In this subtopic, we have confined our discussion to the parameters that determine the intensity of one particular arc of suspenses. However, the suspense potential that exists as a particular point in a dramatic text is generally the result of the interplay of several arcs of suspense. And the last one, can suspense be measured? In this subtopic will be delivered by Rivaldi, I guess. So I can pass the presenter to Rivaldi. Time is yours. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Farah.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, we are discussed in the same topic. Can suspense be measured? ING's Fonegi attempts to establish a measure of dramatic suspense are no use whatsoever in this respect, since all they have managed to record is the number of parts of suspense interacting at any one point in the text, but not their intensity of the level or the level of interference. So we can conclude from this definition that suspense cannot be measured by their intensity or the levels or interference. Okay, next is the different topic, or this is a topic about verbal communication. Okay, we are discussing the overlapping of 2 levels. Dramatic speech shares with ordinary speech in an everyday dialogue is the fact that it is intimately bound up with the immediate context or the situation that in the participant in the dialogue find themselves in. So verbal communication is about dialogues in the drama between of the characters to bound themselves in. So the semantic complexity of dramatic text is not a result of its orientation towards the receiver alone, but also of its orientation towards the senders. This again results from the overlapping of the internal and external communication systems. A dramatic speech does not only have 2 addresses, it also has 2 expressive subjects, One is the fictional expressive subject manifested in the dramatic figure, and the other is the real expressive subject, namely the author. Okay, next, we move to the topic about dimension of deviation. Lemmatic speech deviates from ordinary speech in a number of ways, such as in its use of the word formation and other structural features such as rhetorical stylization or metricality. Its deviatory character is revealed in the way it violates the norm of the linguistic primary codes by the use of innovative words formation or archaism. Okay, this is the example of the drama. In this, the play of crowds, this technique of verbal reduction becomes a stylistic principle in itself, which is employed to demonstrate the close link between the restricted verbal codes of his figure and their restricted awareness. Okay, this is the dialogue between Mary and Carl, which is demonstrate the link between restricted verbal codes. Okay, next we are discussing the polyfunctionality of dramatic language. Okay, the polyfunctionality, a dramatic utterance always fulfills several functions in the internal communication system simultaneously, though one of these may dominate over the others. We can illustrate this by taking one sentence from the dialogue from Crowd's play Mitch's Blood that was quoted in the previous section. The Carl talking, yeah, talk different if no, the way look. The dominant feature here is the ablative function direct the partner. Carl wishes to influence Mary. He hopes to make her reconsider and revise her relationship with him. Okay, we are moved to the other topic, the referential function. The referential function dominates strongly in the conventional forms of dramatic report, such as expository narrative, the messenger's report, and the dictoscopy. These particular elements of the plot are represented in the purely verbal form of the narrative, which for economical or technical reason cannot be enacted directly on stage. The drama of both classicism and naturalism avoid such epic tendencies. In this place, the referential function of spoken reports is not redundant in either the internal or the external communication system. The example of this we can see in the report of Max Piccolomini's heroic death delivered by a Swedish captain in the Skiller's Wallenstein death 4. Okay, and the other topic is expressive function. The expressive function of an utterance relates back to the speaker of a speech and is always of great importance, especially within the external communication system, since the technique of bringing a figure to life by the choice of what he or she talks about. His or her verbal behavior and style are some of the most important characterization techniques in drama. On the other hand, as a conscious feature indeed by the speaker, the expressive function does not have any permanent role. It may be found in a particularly pure and therefore dominant form in abrupt exclamations, as for example in the following exchange between Franz and Wesslingen in Acts 5 of Goethe's Gold von Berlichingen. Oh, this is the dialogue between Franz and Wesslingen. The example of the ellipticality abbreviate from of Franz examination still have the important referential function of informing his mother that he has been seduced by Adelheid into poisoning him. At the same time, however, their repetition does no more than refer back to the speaker and his condition of extreme excitement. This also applies to Wesslingen exclamation, which merely express his reaction to the events rather than any intention of informing or influencing the other figures. Okay, I think that's all from me. And I think that's all of the presentation from Group 3. Thank you for the attention. I hope that the information that has been delivered can be accepted by you guys. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.